The reason you feel guilty every time you say no isn't a flaw in your character, it's a lack of structural defense. We'll show you the three-part psychological framework that lets you set boundaries and instantly eliminates guilt. Let's just let that sink in for a second. You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach when you have to turn someone down? That's not a personal failing, it's a system failure. Think of it this way. It's not you that's broken, it's the social programming you've been running, this old script that tells you your value is tied to how agreeable you are. Well, that's what we're here for, to give you a major software update. We're going to install a new structural defense, a powerful three-part psychological framework designed to make saying no feel not just okay, but like the right thing to do.
All right, so here's our game plan for this masterclass. First, we're going to unpack something called the guilt paradox. Then we'll run a quick diagnostic on the people-pleasing trap that keeps so many of us stuck. From there, we get to the good stuff, building your structural defense piece by piece. We'll even get into the science of why it works, then give you a step-by-step protocol to use immediately, and finally, we'll talk about what this all leads to, reclaiming your autonomy for good.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty wild, counterintuitive idea, the guilt paradox. Now, we're all taught that saying yes is how you build goodwill, right? It shows you're a team player. But here's the truth. The only real path to genuine professional self-respect is by strategically and confidently communicating your limits. See, constantly saying yes doesn't actually build respect, it just builds the expectation that you'll always say yes, which ironically often leads to resentment down the line.
So the real problem here isn't that you're too nice or that you need to be tougher. The problem is a specific pattern called emotional overcommitment. You're basically making decisions based on managing the potential feelings of other people, instead of the hard reality of your own time and priorities. But this isn't some deep emotional flaw you have to fight. Nope, it's just a system error. And we're going to fix it with a rational, structured protocol. We're going to replace emotional guesswork with strategic, logical action.
Now, this habit of emotional overcommitment, it builds up into a much bigger issue. So let's put on our lab coats for a second and diagnose the invisible wall that's blocking your freedom. We call it the people-pleasing trap. And it's this subtle, quiet force that is absolutely sabotaging your focus and your biggest goals.
At the very core of this trap is something called the people-pleasing script. This is a deep, almost unconscious program that's been running in the background for years. And let's be real, it's not really about genuine kindness. It's driven by a primal fear, the fear of conflict, of someone being disappointed in you, of rejection. That fear is so powerful that it just triggers this automatic passive compliance. You say yes just to avoid that immediate awkward discomfort of saying no, without even thinking about your own goals.
And what's the actual tangible cost of running this script day in and day out? Well, it's a disaster called time leakage. This is the catastrophic loss of your most valuable, non-renewable resource, your time. It just bleeds out, going to tasks that aren't important, they aren't urgent. These are those classic quadrant 3 things, the little interruptions, the small favors, all the stuff you say yes to out of pure social obligation. These things are the assassins of deep work.
But the cost isn't just measured in lost hours. It's a huge emotional tax. People-pleasing means you're constantly living with this low-grade fear of conflict buzzing in the background. And look at the chart. The main symptom of this is chronic resentment. It's off the charts high. It's like a slow poison. You say yes to keep the peace externally, but inside you start resenting the person who asked, and even worse, you start resenting yourself. And all the while, your sense of personal autonomy, that feeling of being in control of your own life, just craters.
Okay, we've diagnosed the problem, we've looked at the script, we know the consequences. Enough of that. Now we build the solution. This is your structural defense, and I want you to think of this not as a few helpful tips, but as a precise architectural blueprint for self-advocacy. This is the system that's going to protect your time, your energy, and your goals, and it's engineered to be completely guilt-free.
This whole framework is built on 3 main pillars that all lock together. First, we've got a mental filter called the Dichotomy of Control. Think of this as your psychological shield. Second, a verbal tool, the Broken Record Technique. This is your go-to tactical response. And third, a communication strategy called the F.O.G protocol. This is how you frame your no professionally. Together, they create a totally airtight defense system for your focus.
Now, this first piece is the absolute foundation for getting rid of guilt, so let's really nail this. You have to draw a hard, bright line between what you control and what you don't. Look at the left column. You cannot control another person's feelings, their reaction, or what they think of you. Trying to do that is where all the anxiety comes from. Now, look to the right. What can you control? Your time, your priorities, your words, and your no. When you truly get this separation, you're not being cold, you're taking what they call radical ownership. You are officially firing yourself from the impossible job of managing other people's emotions. It's just not your job.
Okay, so your mindset is now in the right place, thanks to the dichotomy of control. Now you need the tool to actually use in the real world. That's the broken record technique. It's so simple it's almost funny, but man is it effective. You just calmly, politely, and persistently repeat your core refusal. That's it. No long rambling stories, no over-apologizing, no giving them justifications they can argue with. It's just a clear, consistent boundary that gives zero room for negotiation. It just shuts the whole debate down before it even starts.
And finally, we have the F.O.G. protocol. This is how you deliver your no with professional grace. It makes your boundary feel rational, not personal. F.O.G. is simple. It stands for facts and outcome. You just state the objective fact of your situation, like what's actually on your plate. Then, you clearly state the negative professional outcome that would happen if you said yes. This simple little formula frames your no not as a personal rejection, but as a logical, necessary decision to protect your work.
So, that's the what. Now let's get into the why. Because it's one thing to know the tools, but it's another thing to truly believe they'll work. And the reason this framework is so incredibly effective is that it's not just some good idea. It's based on solid behavioral science. It is literally designed to get in there and rewire your brain's default response to social pressure.
So this is the big question, isn't it? How can a few simple rules possibly override a fear as primal and deep as the fear of rejection? I mean, how does it dismantle a lifetime of people-pleasing habits? Well, the answer is that the system is designed to systematically target the exact psychological gears that keep you stuck in that loop.
There are three big things happening in your brain here. First, it strengthens your self-efficacy, which is just a fancy way of saying your belief that you can handle it. Every time you successfully use the system, you create what's called a mastery experience. It's a small win that proves to your brain, hey, I did that and everything was fine. Second, it reduces fear through habituation. By saying no in these controlled, low-stakes ways, you show your brain the threat over and over without anything bad actually happening. After a while, your brain's fear response just gets bored. And finally, it saves your executive function. The simplicity of the protocol stops you from going down that rabbit hole of overthinking, saving your precious mental energy for the work that actually matters.
All right, series over, science is covered. Now we get to the most valuable part, application. How do we make this real? This is the three-step protocol that you can use to put your new defense system into action, literally, today.
Here they are, 3 simple, non-negotiable steps to a guilt-free no. I want you to think of this as your pre-flight checklist before you respond to any request. First, you run the control versus concern audit. Second, you do a quick broken record rehearsal. And third, you deliver your response with the F.O.G. principle seal.
Step 1 happens in that crucial pause before you say or type anything. The second a request hits your inbox or your desk, you have to stop, pause, and run the audit. You consciously apply that dichotomy of control filter. You literally say to yourself, my focus is 100% on what I control, my time, their feelings are 0% my responsibility. This one mental move short-circuits that guilt reaction before it even has a chance to start.
Step 2 is all about rehearsal. You've got to automate the language so you're not fumbling for words when the pressure is on. So pick a simple, polite refusal statement. Something like, thanks for thinking of me, but I don't have the capacity for that right now. Now here's the trick. Say it out loud, to yourself, 5 times. 5x. Yeah, it might feel a little silly, but you're not just practicing words. You're carving a new pathway in your brain. You're building muscle memory so that in the moment, you don't hesitate. You just deliver. And finally, step 3, the delivery. You put it all together. You take your rehearsed line and you seal it with the F.O.G. protocol. State the objective fact. My calendar is fully booked with Project X. Then state the professional outcome. If I took this on, the quality of Project X would suffer. And then you stop. You end it there. Hold the silence. No weak apologies, no extra excuses. You've just presented a logical, professional, and totally non-negotiable boundary.
So we've built the system, we know the science, and we have the protocol. This last part is about the long game. It's about completely reframing the word no. It's not negative. In fact, it's about to become your single most powerful tool for productivity and self-respect. Reclaiming your autonomy isn't something you do once, it's a practice. But the payoff is huge. Less burnout, more focus on the high-impact work that actually gets you noticed, and
Funnily enough, better relationships, built on real respect for boundaries, not on obligation.
I want you to really let this land, because if you get this one idea, you've gotten the whole lesson. Every single time you say no to a distraction, to a low-value request, to something that just doesn't align with your mission, you are creating the space, the time, and the energy to say a huge, powerful yes to what actually matters. No is not an act of rejection. It's the most profound act of strategic focus you have.
So here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Commit to doing just one Dichotomy of Control audit tomorrow. The very next time a non-critical request comes your way, I just want you to pause. Run that mental filter before you even think about responding. That is the first step. The real question is, will you take back control? So let's just tie this all together. Look, this whole thing, assertiveness training, it solves the really painful problem of chronic anxiety and time leakage that comes from people-pleasing. And why that matters so much is that it gives you a systematic way to protect your time and finally reclaim your autonomy. The framework we talked about, the dichotomy of control, the broken record technique, it works because it taps directly into the psychology of how you can shift your sense of control inward and reduce that deep-seated fear of conflict. Just remember this: productivity isn't about doing more, it's about mastering systems that make focus effortless.